I don't have a lot of contentious conversations in my DMs. I've been fortunate to my 4 years on the internet have been very peaceful and agreeable.
Are you sure you're on the right internet?
It's just a piece of paper that my wife drew a smiley face.
This is the internet, honey. It's a chalkboard.
I got the reviews for you, Jamie, and it says good job. And he's like, yeah,
gold star.
Welcome to the show, where AI takes the floor. Leah Rich on the mic.
Welcome to the AI Guys podcast, where we make artificial intelligence easy to understand for everyone. I'm your host, Lee Dixon, and as always, I'm joined by the only person screening my attempted phone calls with a dedicated AI assistant, Rich Swire. How are we doing today?
That was a huge welcome. That was like one of the... You brought that today.
I've got a lot of extra oomph in the chest because we've got a guest today. And typically when we have guests, they're coming in from a very dedicated lane. Our guest today is a little bit more well-versed, and, I'm excited for it. So we had a call a couple of days ago and got to know each other a little bit. So for all of them, our listeners, our guest today is living proof that freelancing can be more than a side hustle. It can become a full-fledged empire. Freelancing for 16 years, working with everyone from your favorite neighborhood diner to brands like Google, Netflix, and Lionsgate Studios, he's built a network of over 400,000 freelancers globally that he shares actionable advice with to help them scale their businesses. Still has me left as a pending LinkedIn connection request. Jamie Brendel, welcome to the pod.
Ooh, sorry about that, man.
I'll take care of
that before the end of this episode.
I'm just messing with you, man. I always try to find something I can come in with. I think 2 or 3 episodes ago, I looked at Rich's LinkedIn, and he had something about being on like a Hawaii surfing team from back in the day. And I was like, let's pull that in. Always got to find some deep cuts.
That's amazing. No, I'm happy to be here, guys. This is going to be a good time. I can already tell we're gonna get into some trouble today.
Yeah, I think right before we jumped in, right, you're saying you're feeling dangerous or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm like, I like that. Yeah, there we go. Well, so I want to give you a few seconds here to kind of jump in and tell people a little bit about what you do and where you're coming from in the space of AI and how it's affecting, maybe the circles that you walk in, if that's all right. And then we'll dive into some of these topics.
Yeah, sure. Hey, everybody, I'm Jamie Brendel. My wife and I have a video production agency over here in Los Angeles. I've been freelancing since I was 17 years old, and circa 2020, I started talking about it on the internet because that was right around the time when everybody was, getting pushed out of their jobs, and there was a lot of uncertainty in the
something happened in 2020. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember the details, but I remember that, and so we thought, we could take a byproduct of our agency, which is just the expertise, yielded from years of learning everything the hard way, and try and help some of those folks realize that, whether they left on their own fruition or were exited from their jobs, something magical just happened, something wonderful just happened, and they can now, build an asset for themselves. There's never been a better time in the history of the world to be out there building something for yourselves. And like that keeps getting that statement keeps getting truer and truer with every new AI development, right? Like it's like every week,
true.
It's like, now there's never been a better time to be doing this for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of the exposition, I guess, on what's brought us to this conversation here today. I'm as fresh on AI as most practitioners are. It's just kind of seeing where I can slot it in my day to day. It's been pretty sweet.
Well, that's perfect, Jamie, because honestly, where we're coming from, everything that we do here, it's trying to understand a way to bring everything full circle for any of our listeners. So I know you're going to be a wealth of knowledge on a lot of this. Let's start off, though, with, where you feel like, I know you've kind of coined a term in the freelancer space with, like some entrepreneurial lingo and how you're kind of rebranding some things. But let's talk about like these solopreneurs and like these freelancers and maybe how AI can start to help one person or even a small team start to really function like a large output.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's pretty straightforward if you think about it, right? Anything that is a menial task, anything that previously maybe you would bring in a VA to do with you, or kind of a second, right? Like if you're a video editor, like an assistant editor, or if you're a photographer, like, an assistant photographer or an assistant colorist or something like that. Any of those tasks, take a look at AI for those now, right? So suddenly you can build out an army of assistant editors, right? I'll go to that one because that's the industry I came from, right? Where if you, if previously you maybe had two AEs that were, trusted fellow practitioners, and that meant that you could probably, handle 8 projects a month where, they put together a line cut and then you come in and you put your magic sauce on top and it's done. Now you bring in AI, right? And you can handle 16 projects a month. You can handle 21 projects a month, right? It's like,
bandwidth is no longer an issue.
They'll take care of it in 20 seconds, right? It's just cool. And then it's just however long, if it takes you a day to do your thing, now you've got 30 days, So it's stuff like that. Is I would take a look first at the menial tasks, at the stuff that, that anybody can do, and free yourself up. I say that like with all due respect, but, free yourself up to do the things that only you can do. I think that's the kind of the top level way to be thinking about AI now.
What are the top tools that you guys have found useful? Obviously in your specific business, obviously a lot of the visual and video stuff could be of use, but like just as like a core freelancer, what are some of your top? What are your favorite tools, and what are you using them for on a day-to-day?
I mean, honestly, it's probably a basic answer, knowing that I'm talking to the AI guys, but the way that we plug ChatGPT into our business, and continue to find new ways to plug it in has been revelatory. It's just like, it's like every day it's funny the amount of like business problems that Courtney's my wife and business partner, the amount of like business problems that we will go on a walk, that we have routinely solved for together over years, that now like we'll find ourselves 10 minutes into a conversation and one of us will go, what if we just asked ChatGPT? Like, what if we just deployed ChatGPT on this, right? Like we had a, without giving out too many details, like we had a subcontractor that kind of ghosted on us, and it's rare because we've got protocols in place for that to not happen. But it affected our business, and we're on a walk yesterday thinking, okay, how do we? Because this guy's offer was great. How do we make up for it in the aggregate? Do we need to hire like 2 people, 3 people? And I'm going, or
wait for it.
Yeah. What if we took every email that we've had between us and this person, every mock-up that we put together, every web that we made, fed it into ChatGPT and asked it, hey, I want to make this thing in the next, 3 days. How do you proceed? Right. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, we get a plan, we get an action plan. That's just, oh yeah, it's easy. Just do these 8 things, right? These things that I would have company or apps I've never heard of, websites I'm not familiar with, and we just now this project that we wasted a month and a half on is going to be done probably by Monday.
Great.
Yeah, streamlined.
Yeah, there's a clear. We've had a lot of discussions with creatives, and we actually was part of a production studio a while ago, still exists. I helped start it. And so I'm somewhat familiar with like the process of developing video. And my business partner there, was concerned around, how is AI going to affect video production? Because, obviously AI is being used to create, imagery and videos, and he's more of he comes from the news background, but he's more of the creative, like architect of the story, and which I've always said the story matters more than anything. And then there's a human element to that. Even AI hasn't gotten to the point where it can influence it, but it can't really duplicate it. But I also kind of made the argument, I'm interested to hear your point of view on this, is that, there's going to be a lot of the kind of creative process certainly be leveraging AI. There's no doubt about it. At minimum, the process, maybe not the end product, but certainly part of the process, which we're talking about right now. But there's also this widening, interesting new territory being opened up for creatives that they never really had access to. I mean, video production, design, marketing is kind of where the creatives have always been like channeled inside of, the ecosystem of business. But now with development and the building of products and experiences is now being presented with zero code environments like, and so all these tools are coming out where a creative person can actually dictate through prompts, and build applications or experiences beyond obviously just like the video or imagery. So I think I made this argument to him that yeah, of course, anytime there's new innovation, there's a shift, and there's some people lose jobs, but those people that lose jobs end up recreating themselves in a different light. But I'm interested to hear like kind of your thoughts from a video production perspective, and then also perhaps like, are you starting to feel the tension where customers are saying, well, can't AI just do this? And then you're like, well, whereas it's like almost like not a negotiation tactic from customers, but also like a pressure on you to figure out like, what's your answer for that? And then also, do you see opportunity for you to go beyond video production into some of these new green fields where now AI allows you to do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think, our clients bring up AI in the context of how can we be using this to do even more, right? It's never how do we use this to replace you. It's how do we use this to plus you, right? But I would say that the thing that AI is revealing is something that myself and countless others have been harping on for decades, which is it's never been about the implementation. I think that creatives take that personally, or a certain type of creative takes that personally because they dedicated so much time to mastering implementation. But if you've hung your hat on that, if that's been your career, is that, oh, I'm just the best, I'm a really good photographer, or I'm a really good graphic designer, or I'm a really good copywriter, you're in trouble. Because it's never been about that. Especially, I mean, to the clients, it's never been about that. A client doesn't care if the photograph is really good. They care if the photograph gets X result, right? And it's going to be different for whatever your client type is or whatever your industry is. It's, they don't care that this is a really pretty ad, or a really clever ad. They care that it yielded conversions, right?
Yeah.
And so it's at every, no matter what type of creative person you are, no matter what type of creative professional you are a machine that they put $1 in and $2 comes out. And that machine looks a lot like a photograph, or it looks a lot like a website, or it looks a lot like a piece of copy, but that's not the product you're selling. And so now it's like, that is so apparent, right? Where it's like, well, okay, well, anybody can make a photograph, really. I mean, you can take a picture of a lipstick with your iPhone, run it through ChatGPT, and it's magazine ready in 20 minutes, right? 20 seconds. Like, it's like, so like that, the implementation is no longer even, they don't even have a choice now. They have to be about the result, right? They have to be about the strategy. And so the creatives that have already optimized for that, I like to think Courtney and I are in that camp. Like we don't have to have that. We don't have that conversation with our clients, right? Because they already know. It's like we're a strategic partner to them. Every conversation we have is about how are we improving your business with this effort, right? Every discussion we have about editing something creative, or any creative discussion is tied to ROI. So therefore, any discussion about AI is going to be similarly tied to ROI.
Right. And yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of a, if there's fear or there's apprehension in embracing AI for some of those, like you mentioned, some of those people who kind of are stuck in this utility element and haven't really thought about outcomes and producing results as part of what they're selling. If they're resistant to AI, the irony is that that's probably their best chance of actually expanding into that ability to do more than what they've been doing, right? Like you mentioned that walk that you and your wife are taking, and expanding your capabilities by simply just prompting AI to give you a plan and exposure to things you were currently using a subcontractor for. So it seems like a lot of these freelancers, they need to think about, okay, I have a specialty in a skill, but now I need to fill in these other gaps to provide better outcomes. And how do I leverage AI to do that? So, it's probably better for them to go all in with AI. It's not something that's going to go away tomorrow. So fighting it and resisting it seems like a fool's errand. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's been my, I don't have a lot of contentious conversations in my DMs. I've been fortunate to my 4 years on the internet have been very peaceful and agreeable. But when I started,
are you sure you're on the right internet?
I know, right?
Is it like AOL?
You're talking
about yeah. It's just a piece of paper that my wife drew a smiley face.
This is the internet, honey. It's a chalkboard.
I got the reviews for you, Jamie, and it says good job. And he's like, yeah,
gold star, gold star.
Mm-hmm.
But no, but here lately, whenever I post about AI, I've noticed I start getting some pretty angry messages about it from creatives. And this isn't. I mean, not the majority by any means. It's like for every 12, there's one that comes in yelling, right? But that's new to me. And I've identified that it's a fear response for sure. I think anytime you're that emotional about a post, it's not about the post, right? So I take it from that approach where it's okay, this person's afraid. How do I calm them down a little bit? Like,
give them peace of mind.
Yeah, and let them know that this is actually a really good thing. Similar to how when we got started in 2020, it's yes, you just lost your job. That's great news. Let me explain why, And so I'm trying to explain that, this AI thing is just another asset. It's another tool in the bag, right? It's almost overused now. People are referencing the emergence of Photoshop, right? When Photoshop came onto the scene and all the designers were like, well, that's it. It was fun while it lasted. All the clients have to do now is open up this program and they can do what we do. And like hindsight's 2020. We know how that went. It's just the same people that didn't want to learn how to paint and draw. Also didn't want to learn how to use Photoshop to paint and draw. They didn't want to learn how to use Photoshop to get that result that we talk about. So that's not changing. It's the same executives that don't want to learn how to do the thing you do, also don't want to learn how to use AI to do the thing you do, right? They're just they've got a problem that needs solved. They don't know how to solve it. So that's all business is. It's the exchange of money for solutions. So if you have optimized for that, you're going to do just fine. And as you mentioned, it's like the toothpaste ain't going back in the tube. Like this isn't going anywhere. So the only difference between a freelancer who's using AI right now and who's not using AI right now is, 5 years from now, they'll both be using it. Only one of them will be 5 years ahead. So just get in there, figure it out. I mean, I know there's ethical concerns and environmental concerns and all that stuff. I don't have a case to make on that front other than it's, the internet, is a place where a lot of nefarious things are done as well. But does that mean we don't use the internet?
Yeah.
Like, no, it just means we use it for good. Like, it's to try to offset that.
Yeah, it's the classic conundrum of being human, right? We have so many things that we depend heavily on, and everything from natural resources to the food we eat to you can take any argument that divides people 50-50, and when you really drill into it, there is no real clear 1-0 solution. This is the way it is because we've created a world, an infrastructure that supports the things that we like to do, and if we're going to replace it, it's going to take more than, a couple days to do that. But if it's a concerted effort and there's attention placed on some of these fears and some of these issues, I think that's the most important thing, is that dialogue continues. But you're not going to solve anything, and you're certainly not going to get rid of technology. Technology is just too powerful to slow down. That's been the case, for thousands of years. But you can put in, in the dialogue, hey, we should be thinking about this, we should be thinking about that, and not as a way to like hold on to the past and try to slow it down, because that's very difficult to do, but certainly to make sure that it doesn't, have negative output that's going to, obviously affect people either individually or socially. But, yeah, I think I've always said, and I'm an optimist with the AI, I said AI is going to fix a lot of things that I believe are worse than what you could ever imagine the internet being used for. I think the last 15, 20 years has been, I think, a left turn for what the internet was meant to do, with social media and the distraction and the doom scrolling and just the noise that's out there that really kind of creates more divide. And I feel like AI, as it gets better and better, and as people start to use AI more, the entire user experience of the internet and our lives change in a way that, like you mentioned about the 30 days, what you used to do in a few days, now you can do in one. It gets your time back, and you can be human again, and you can actually say things like perfect example, you and your wife, that story is a great metaphor for it. You and your wife were on a walk. Well, that's very human, right? AI can't do that yet. And you said, hey, we've got a big work problem. Let's figure it out on this walk. And it figured it out, and AI did the work for you, and you could still enjoy your walk. I think that story resonates to what the tool is meant to do, right? And that's honestly what the internet was meant to do. It's just that now it's become this like third screen that's dominating our attention. But the reality is that it's not a healthy way to use the internet. And I think that's going to be like that shift positively is going to override, I think, any sort of negatives that you could argue toward what the fallout of AI could be.
Well, one thing too that you guys are both kind of hitting on here is like, the process of the employee or the freelancer, just the person, right? The producer being I take money from you to produce content. Here you go. Like, here is your piece of production. Now, like, you're instead more of the vending machine company that's dropping it off saying, this is going to sell sodas for you, right? And I'm the purveyor of it. I built the machine for you. Here it is. I'll make sure it's stocked. I'll make sure it keeps working. And then this is my cut that I take from that. But here it is. And it's interesting to me, especially when you look at it from the creative lens, because I feel like like a lot of creatives do more damage trying to avoid AI from the time suck and everything that they're currently doing. They're like, no, I have to keep it this way. So they end up putting way more effort into just steering around it versus saying, let me just open the GPS and figure out how I get to where I'm supposed to be going, and using it as a tool that actually
also
works.
Creatives are the best people to unlock the power of AI. I mean, it's like,
right.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Just when you put a creative person in front of a tool like that, what they're not seeing is the unknown, right? It's what's beyond the forest and the trees, is that they could take their mind and through prompting, like, create a world what wasn't even possible, even and all the tools and all the time that you might have had as a creative. And I do really believe that we're on the dawn of a renaissance in that scenario, because has never been that way. It was a financial a financial situation that really drove the first renaissance. Everybody just had a lot of free time and they had a lot of ability to spend. But this is not too dissimilar to that, where now you have not only, perhaps we get some back of our time that we can all be creative, but now you have a tool that really just has a human user interface. You can talk to it, you can chat with it, and you can actually create. And creativity is now, when I think 20 years ago, if you said, digital creativity or internet creativity, or you just kind of put that technology creativity together, you would just imagine something in Photoshop and maybe a video, and maybe a magazine ad at the time, whatever, or a website. But now when you say creativity, it's like anything and everything. You could be a game developer, you could create new worlds, virtual worlds, software. Now it's like, and you could do it in a basically near $0 because you can experiment, and then without having to hire out a developer to build out your vision. You could just prompt it and at least get to a minimal viable product, or at least a proof of concept, right? It's going to take some heavy lifting to get it to the end, but the point is that you can experiment, you can play around without, there's no limit really to what you can do. And that's exciting, because I think creatives are like the most powerful asset we have, specifically in our country, but more importantly in the world. And it's just a massive unlock. And I don't think people understand that. It's just like, especially for kids. I mean, to me, like, if I was my kid had some friends over last night, and I just looked at them, I'm like, you guys have no idea how lucky you are to be born right now, because like because if I was 21 again, and the energy I used to have and the creativity and the mind that I had, when I used to write poetry, and now I couldn't even do a roses are red, violets are blue without it not rhyming. So like, like that mind when you're in their 20s, man, that's like it. I can't imagine what we're going to see in 20 years with that new generation.
That's true.
I was going to say, what's wild is when they're our age and they're saying to their kids, "You guys have no idea how lucky you are to be born now. Things you can do that I couldn't do when I was your age."
That's nuts. And how often I was perfect. I'm like my kid. AI came out when he was in college, and internet came out when I was in college. So I was like, I know how lucky I was to be introduced to this, World Wide Web,
internet, the right place,
and what
right
a fun
time,
ride that was. But now I'm looking, but I could literally, if I had AI the last 30 years, I could have done what I did in 30 years in 3 years. That's scary to me, because I'm from a development, from a product development, from a company creation, from an asset, all that stuff, I could have done it in a tenth of the time, and I know that.
Well, we were just talking the other day, Rich, with, utilizing some of the AI tools we do over here at Rhea, like in our stack of outputting product. We spun up a UI and like really an appified experience for a client. And he's like, honestly, if I normally would have done this has been 1 to 2 months of work. And he's like, and we did it in like a weekend. He's like, that's unreal. To get an MVP from ideation to full creation, typically, as you were saying, Jamie, kind of takes time to like, all right, let's put together the plan. Let's then look at what are the unknown unknowns, like where is this plan going to derail? And for somebody to literally take all of that context of the conversations you've had and say, I've accounted for everything. This is the plan I would do based on the knowledge you gave me. Feel free to take it or adjust it as you see fit because you're ultimately the producer at the end. What are your thoughts? And you go, damn, this is pretty good. I might make a little couple tweaks here and there, but this is A to Z that I could follow. That's scary, but not in a bad way. It's scary and like, okay, what else can I now use it for and leverage? Those light bulbs start to really go off there.
I think I've noticed that, and we've had these conversations with agency owners and folks at quite large brands, that a freelancer's strength is iteration. That now more than ever, it's we're seeing big brands bring in individuals to solve problems versus agencies to solve problems, and this is pre-AI. We started seeing this, but now with AI, it's an obvious play, right? Where it's okay, we'll iterate with this person. And once we have a winning concept, then we'll take it over to this, huge slow ass agency and they'll do their thing with it. While the freelancer keeps iterating on the next thing that we're going to pass their way, we saw it with Fiverr. Fiverr just came out with a new AI kind of implementation that's really interesting, where creatives are training their own AI on their work. And then a client will go on to Fiverr, iterate with that freelancer's AI, and then pass it off to the freelancer to put the finishing touches on it, right? So something that used to take 2 weeks or a week now takes a couple hours. Obviously, the freelancer can set the time at whatever they want, but and people like that's it's further cheapening my work, and I need to it's. Now they're a little expected for even less. And I'm like, no, I've been a client. I've already used it as a client, and I expect to pay more for that. Like if I want this poster done in 20 minutes, and I want it to be good, I'll pay an extra couple $100 for that. That's a premium. And we did. So it's like and so I advise the freelancers, think of it that way, is that it's very simple. If you add value, you get paid, right? And AI is adding value, so therefore you should be getting paid more.
Yeah.
But
it's also, part of the creative process. It's not all fun and games, right? The creative process is very strenuous on a creative. I've worked with creatives all my life, and when you look at the arc of the creative process, there is a big slice of that arc that is the client and you going back and forth with what they want, and the disconnect and miscommunication, and then the iteration of ideas and drawings. And then I've always experienced the creative gets extraordinarily frustrated with that. So if there is more work done up front, where the client can talk to AI literally all day until they get somewhere close to that's my vision. At least if I was a creative, I'd be like, oh, thank God, I don't like doing that at all.
You've washed your hands
man, that was a nightmare. I don't want to spend 20 hours, because if I'm going to charge this guy $500, whatever it is, for this XYZ, and I'm spending 20 hours just getting to the point where there's a drawing that he thinks he likes.
Yeah, to do the thing I was planning to do
exactly.
How many times the scope of work tends to change once it's like, yes, we're ready to do this, and it's like, well, could you also throw this in?
And then on the backside, same thing happens, right? You get the 80-90% solution, and they're like, oh, can you just tweak this? Can you tweak that? Again, AI could probably help with those components, those small little new once the primary concept is done. So I think it's just
or setting better expectations too on the actual output of hey, we're happy to do that in this first version or phase 1 of it, and if you would like this to go further, or this project to expand, we can do that, and it would cost X. So it's almost doing the pre-qualification work, or a lot of that sales positioning that probably a lot of creatives and freelancers don't want to do. I mean, Jamie, that's where a lot of your content kind of started, and is do not devalue yourself, right?
Yeah.
Find ways to bring more tools and pieces to the table that make you a better solution than whatever else they might have been looking at.
Well, that's the next part of that, right? Of that conversation so it's like, yeah, you have it handling the iteration with the client, but also like you can have it handling the communication with the client too, right? Like you can have it, there was a great Chris Do had a great video like years ago where he had somebody he was training somebody how to negotiate, and she she was bad at it. She was not a great negotiator, right?
Fair.
And then he said, okay, now do me a favor, like let's try this. Negotiate on my behalf, right? And say a brand is coming to you to work with Chris, and you have to get me as much money as possible. And suddenly it unlocked something where now she's a skilled negotiator. She has no problem saying the things or pointing out the obvious things. And, it's that is an insight that many have to spend years acquiring. And now you can just deploy AI, right, to negotiate on your behalf, or have AI
sales assistant
these scope conversations on your behalf. It's almost like, it's a lot of creatives put an agent or a manager between them and a brand, or between them and a company they want to work with. And, all that does is it kind of gives space for that conversation. I don't think it's a requirement, and I try to teach people why, but if you feel like you need that, have an AI agent. It's somebody and it can say, hey, Rich is busy right now. I'm his agent, and let's hash this out. We want to get you a good product, and and it has a whole conversation with your agent, and then you just get an email that says, hey, job's ready. This is what they want to do. We went ahead and iterated on a few ideas. Here's how much they're paying. It's the future is very exciting.
Very exciting. Yeah. So, I mean, when you're looking at, if you're, talking to your audience, freelancers right now, and probably most of them either started or continue to be obviously entrepreneurs, but as they grow, they could, staff up and become more of a company. But like, I'm assuming that most of them are pretty much, kind of, like you said, solo entrepreneurs. So what, obviously we've talked a lot about AI very positively, and I'm sure everybody's kind of scrambling to find out what's going to work for them, what's not going to work for them. But like, from kind of a last minute or last piece of advice to, if somebody's thinking about starting this, even like if they're an existing job looking to exit, or maybe they're young or they're coming out of college, like what are the top 3 things that, it's always hard for us to see what somebody else sees, because we all have our experience and our history of doing things. But what are what are you seeing as far as the top 3 things that they might, they should really hyper focus on, as far as like how to start and build into that freelancer world? Is it one of these things where it's like, do they hone a skill? Do they have a specific resource? Do you recommend going down a path where you get, or do you recommend certain channels or certain websites, or do you recommend or is there like find 5 or 6 people that that have businesses and start doing stuff for them? I mean, what's your go-to like bootstrap freelancer, obviously using AI in every possible way you can to maximize it, but I'm more on the practical side. What's your gut say in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same, frankly, as it's always been, right? And this is something that took me way too long to figure out. It's like I had to discover this on accident. Hopefully, by talking about it here today, somebody who's interested in starting, can kick off with a little more intentionality now.
I'm throwing my 2 weeks in after this podcast.
Sweet.
So like,
that's my goal. Okay, cool. That's a noble goal.
Perfect.
No, it's that, it all begins with the offer. It's literally, if you can get very specific about what problem you're solving, for who, to what result, you're going to do just fine. Right. So I think, and it's great because it's what we started this conversation talking about, right? How a graphic designer who thinks the problem that he or she is solving is, I have clients that need graphic design. That person has a really painful couple of years in front of them, on their career, right? Because it's like they haven't gotten specific about what problem they're actually solving, right? So, the how you solve the problem is almost irrelevant. You gotta have a problem to solve first, right? So pick an industry, they call it a niche, pick a specific avatar, type of person that has a problem, that you know you can solve, and start from there. Because that is, if that's done well, that is all three of your responsibilities as a business owner wrapped up into one effort, right? So the three things you're responsible for is marketing, sales, and fulfillment, right? Marketing, you know exactly who you need to tell about this. You know exactly how to talk to them about it because you've done your research. You know the problem that they're having, right? Sales is just a matter of matchmaking, right? You have this problem, I have this answer. Let's get started. That's I forget who said it. One of the big sales gurus from the early 1900s. It's like sometimes
Lee
it really
Dixon,
is as simple as horse for
Right.
sale. Need a horse for sale. And it's fulfillment because the promise of the offer is what you're going to be doing is in the promise of the offer. So I would say start there. You don't need a website. You don't need a robust network. You don't need
portfolio, all the other stuff.
Yeah, social media presence, none of that. Like that all will come. But really, at the end of the day, business is, as we mentioned, it's solving. It's the exchange of money for solutions. So you just optimize for that from the get go. The next thing I'd say is don't people say, well, I don't know anybody that can give me a shot. And it's like, I guarantee you do. Like, I guarantee you, if you sit down this weekend and write out everybody you've ever engaged with who you have their cell phone number or their email, right? And you send that each one of those people a pointed message about how excited you are to be solving this problem for this person, and you'd really appreciate it if they could forward this email or this message to somebody that that could benefit from it. Right? I guarantee you'll get your first job doing that. If not, come yell at me. Come join the AI people yelling at me in the DMs. So this was a 2. And then the third thing that I would say is that it's very hard to get started. It's you're a badass just by making the decision to get started as a freelancer. But it's get used to now being uncomfortable with your career. I think that's, something that a lot of people, expected to start working 6 months in, and sometimes it does. And, usually, if you're building with intention, you're going to be fine at about the 6-8 month mark. You'll get a hang for it. But ultimately, in terms of building out, a career out of this thing, you're in it for the long haul. And if you're not being presented with the option of fear by your mind, if your mind isn't suggesting, hey, we should probably be afraid of this, then you're probably doing something wrong.
Right.
I say to freelancers all the time, it's like, you like smile at that suggestion because it means you're on the right track. And then, kindly say, no, I'm not interested in that particular emotion right now. Thank you for the recommendation, but thank you for the acknowledgement that I'm onto something here,
Right.
And proceed. So I would say that those are the three big ones, right? Is get really specific about your offer, activate your network, and then just get yourself in the right place when it comes to kind of the discomfort that comes with building something for yourself. Make buddies with it, right? Get friendly with failure. Like it's it's a game of data collection. Failing means that you're doing something, right? If you're not failing, it means you're just kind of standing in one spot, which where's the fun in that?
Right on. Fail till you succeed.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah. Honestly, this was great, man. And I appreciate you making the time to come on here. I think everything we've covered today is actionable, for an audience on either side. And I think one of the takeaways too, when you're talking about that discomfort that's out there, like that is a good spot if you're an entrepreneur or someone in the space trying to figure out how to overcome that discomfort. Maybe that's the first part you start to steer AI towards, right? So you talked about the creative being in the sales position, not wanting to do those types of things. If that is a discomfort that ends up eating up your time or your bandwidth, that it might be an area that you want to address. And, that's a good low hanging fruit to at least, create ideas around in a way.
I love that. Yeah, that's a good signal to you. It's like, okay, we're going to highlight this one that deploy AI against that.
Yeah, to give me all that time and to make sure that I've built up a wall around the things that I care about, the things I know move the business forward, and what are the time sucks or those 5 to 10 minute tasks that as they start to stack up and I grow, either am I hiring a person to do that and then I have to make them understand everything about my business the way I do, like a VA or something, or do I create a digital essentially version of myself that can grab all of the input, make decisions based around what I would do, and then provide an output that either wins me clients or frankly disqualifies them because they're not a good fit for my services, and I don't have to be the one to do those things.
And literally anybody can play this game. Like you mentioned, I just want to like caveat this because I want to point this out. Like, because I'm sure a VA watching what you just said is a little nervous now, right? Because it's saying, okay, well, all these people are, but to that I say, now you VA do the same, go through the same process.
Exactly.
Where it's
why
like,
can't
okay,
a VA that's now been hired essentially have a team of agents that make them more efficient,
it's
take
like
on more
you
bandwidth?
are no longer a VA. You are 87 VAs, and you can be deployed against so many specific use cases, you know?
In so many industries that you don't currently have the knowledge or the bandwidth to do.
Exactly.
Right. But you now open yourself up outside of the one niche that you sit in to take on more work and grow yourself that way. So, yeah, this has been great, man. And, you know, we covered a lot today, but we would love to have you back if you're open to it in the future. So
I'm game. And if I'm not available, I'll send my AI avatar over.
Yeah. Well, hopefully in 6 months, right? And it's none of us. It's just all three AI avatars just having a conversation.
We're working on it. We're
just hanging out in LA and our avatars are part of a podcast.
Following our own advice, right?
Talk about utopia. All right, perfect. Well, hey, everyone. Thanks again for joining us on this episode. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button to stay in touch. Also, check out our Substack for more content, which will be linked to this episode to continue this discussion. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Welcome to the show where air takes the flow.